Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad to have you. As you can see from the title, today I am finishing the second half of my two tiny houses build. I'm doing the half that is going to be for my Courtney Total Drama Island sim, so it's going to be a lot of grays and greens on the inside of this half of the property. And I'm sorry, this half is going to be up so late in the day. I know usually I post my videos in the afternoon, but I've been really busy this last week, so I just haven't had time to edit. But I did finally get some time to finish it, so here it is. And yeah, I went with this gray tile for the little kitchenette. I just thought that it was cute. I liked the blue-green accents on there. There's a lot of blue-green, sort of like teal turquoise accents used on the first floor of this build, which I know doesn't necessarily make sense for like Courtney's color scheme specifically, but I don't know, I thought it was cute. There was sort of a challenge too with this theme because like I don't really know that much about Courtney's character as far as the show goes, and so I was sort of struggling to figure out her aesthetic because I know she's very preppy and she's very like put together and really organized, but it's like, okay, what does that look like in the case of like an interior for a house, and specifically an interior for like a log cabin, right? Like what does that even look like? But I think I got something that makes some sense here. And for the bathroom, I use that tile from Growing Together, which I've never used before, but I really like it. And I used the matching floor tile as well, which again, never used it before, but I think it looks really cute. I'm a big fan of like toothpastey sort of turquoise colors. And just like everything else in this build, the bathroom is a mirrored version of the one on the other side of the property, so everything's flipped. But other than that, it's basically identical. I have the same lights, the same mat there, and the kitchen is in the same place but flipped. And I used the same cabinets but in a different color swatch, which did end up being sort of a struggle for me later because, as you can see on Duncan's side, there's a sink there on the outside of the bathroom, and that sink is part of the same pack as the cabinets are. It's from the Horse Ranch pack, and it's the same color scheme. There's like a matching swatch that matches the counters in that color, but with this like blue with the brown countertop, there isn't really a sink that like matches exactly, which really annoying for me, but it's fine. I ended up using one from Jungle Adventure. You'll see it. It isn't exactly a perfect match, but I mean, I did use the Jungle Adventure tiles for the walls, so the colors still mostly match. It's close enough. And yeah, I forgot that I needed to move objects on to get the cabinets right because again, it's mirrored, and so that end cabinet is like slightly too big to go above the fridge, but I wanted it to be mirrored, you know what I mean? So I just cheated a little bit. It's fine. Yeah, originally I was going to use the Horse Ranch sink there, but you saw it's like not exactly the right color. The blue is the same, but the countertop is different. And it's like, okay, like tell me how that makes sense. It doesn't. But I went with this blue one from Jungle Adventure, and I think it works just fine. It's a really similar blue color, so it's fine. And then I put the washer and dryer in the same little corner there, but I ended up giving Courtney the off-white swatch just because I thought that it matched better. I made her appliances white also rather than black because I thought that they matched better. And yeah, I used this table and chairs from the Paranormal pack. I actually really like this table and chairs a lot. I use them in a lot of builds. It's like kind of one of my go-to items, even though it's like they don't always match everything, but I love all the swatches, and I'm a big fan of like smaller tables like that for dining nooks, so it's one of my faves. And I didn't do a big TV for Courtney because she doesn't really strike me as much of a TV watcher, but I did put one in anyway, just a small one, and I put it off to the side like that rather than dead center like I did Duncan's, just because I wanted the layout of Courtney's place to be a little bit different, you know, so the appliances and stuff are all in the same places on the opposite side, but the furniture is a little bit different. Just, you know, the things that would have been put in by like, you know, the people who built the property are in all the same places, so like light fixtures, that sort of thing. And I did go in and add some clutter for the kitchen just to make it look more lived in. I was scrolling through the clutter. I was looking for like a specific pot to put on the counter, and I found these books from Cats and Dogs, and I was like, oh wait, I need those. I better like pull those out before I lose track of them. I almost used that pot from Horse Ranch, and then I was like, wait, that's not the one I'm thinking of. I had like a specific pot in my head that I wanted to put down. And so I scrolled for it, and it's actually from Cottage Living. I went with this purple swatch just because like it doesn't like match the rest of everything, but I thought that the purple had a nice contrast with everything. And I put down the tea maker just because Courtney strikes me more of like a tea girl rather than a coffee girl, you know, so went with that. And yeah, I almost forgot the trash bin, but I remembered, and I ended up making it turquoise as well, which I almost did it white because I was like, maybe it's like too much to have it be turquoise too, but I don't know, I think it looks fine. Oh yeah, and then I put move objects back on so that I could place my clutter and still have an open cooking space, because that's the downside of the tea maker, right, is that it takes up an entire cabinet, or no, not cabinet, oops, counter slot. And yeah, I put the thermostat and the light switch in the same place. I almost did a white thermostat, but then I ended up switching it to a black one because I kind of had that same like, oh, well, it's the same kind of thermostat as on the other house, right? So it should be the same color too. And it matches the like doors and windows and stuff. And for her desk, so I did Duncan's like office nook up in the bedroom, and I ended up laying their bedrooms out a little bit differently too, so you'll see what I mean, but there wasn't really room for a desk up there on Courtney's end, and so I just put it down here. And you might think it's a little bit weird for the desk to face away from the window rather than towards the window, and I did almost flip it around, but I don't know, I just think that it looks so much more like open this way, almost like it makes the space look bigger with the window like that. And I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but that's just how it looks to me. And I ended up putting a bookcase in that little middle bit, which on Duncan's is where the TV is, but like I said, I wanted to sort of switch up the layout on this end, so I put a bookcase in there. There's actually 2 bookcases on Courtney's side, which it always feels weird to me to put more than one bookcase in a Sims build, because like, I mean, realistically, you only need one. You're only going to use one, but they look nice. And I ended up putting a violin and a guitar for Courtney. I know I gave Duncan a guitar, and I wasn't exactly sure if he actually played the guitar on the show. I couldn't remember. But my girlfriend looked it up for me, and she confirmed that, yes, Duncan plays the guitar, but actually, apparently, so does Courtney, which I did not know. I knew she played the violin. I remembered that from the show, but I did not remember her playing the guitar or ever mentioning that she played the guitar on the show, but apparently she does. So I included that as well. And then for curtains, I ended up putting longer curtains on all of those big windows, and then I went for some shorter curtains on these smaller windows. And I was really indecisive at first about which ones to put. I like scrolled through all of the various like blue green options that we have before I finally made my mind up, and it's like there are a lot of blue green curtains, right? And I wanted to do that color rather than black because the long curtains were black and I wanted a little bit of contrast, but I don't know, inevitably I wasn't able to find any that I actually liked, and so I ended up going with some short black curtains instead, just because it was easier and made the most sense. See, I tried literally every combination before I finally just gave up. Oh my gosh, it was so silly. Like, I knew what kind of curtains fit on those windows because I had already done Duncan's. And so, like, I was just determined to do something different on this end before I finally was like, okay, well, I guess I accept defeat and I have to do these short ones from the Parenthood pack. They're good curtains. I use them a lot. I just wanted to do something different. But it's fine. It's fine. They work for a reason, you know? So who am I to argue with what works? And then I used that mat for like a kitchen mat for Courtney. And the rest of the rugs sort of, they fell into place naturally, but at the same time, I was pretty indecisive about them. So I put those 2 square ones, or rather rectangle ones, in, and I was like, okay, that looks good. And then you'll see the one near the couch, I ended up going with a round rug, but I was pretty indecisive about which round rug to use, so that was a journey. I did film most of this while I was holding one of my rabbits in my lap, and so there were a lot of instances where I was just like scrolling mindlessly and like petting my bunny and not really paying attention to what I was looking at. So some of the rug choices took me a lot longer than they should have. And yeah, since I didn't put a TV in this little middle space. I wasn't sure how to fill it up, because I put the bookcase in, but it still looked kind of empty. And so I ended up going with these planters just to sort of fill it up. And I thought it looked really cute. And again, it's supposed to be kind of a log cabiny sort of vibe, so I thought that worked. And like Duncan's side is really more of like a masculine sort of bachelor-y kind of log cabin, and I wanted this side to be more of like dainty, preppy, feminine sort of vibe for Courtney, because it just makes sense. Ended up using that coffee table from Tiny Living because it's perfect. It's one of my favorite coffee tables. It's literally the perfect size and shape. And then I gave her some speakers as well. And yeah, here's my journey with the round rugs. I wanted to go with this one at first because I liked the braided texture, but the longer I looked at it, the more I felt like it didn't fit in the spot, and so I ended up going with a different one instead, and this square one was almost the move. I wanted to layer two on top, right, like next to each other like that, but the seam was odd to me, so I just left it with that one. And again, I wanted a round one, but the square one just worked better, and like the pattern on it, I don't know, I think it looks fine. And yeah, a little welcome mat there. And on Duncan's side, I put like a coat rack and a shoe rack situation, but I felt like it would be too busy on Courtney's side with all of that because of like the desk and stuff. So I just did the shoe rack and then kind of a coat tree situation, which again, this took me way too long to find in the catalog. I was like scrolling and scrolling, then I was like, oh yeah, I have a search function. And I like remembered that the search bar existed, and then like, duh, easy, right there, coat rack. And yeah, I just thought that fit a lot better than like a big honkin' one like on Duncan's side. And the walls are probably a lot more decorated on this side than they were on Duncan's, but it's purely because I like could not think of what Duncan would hang on his walls other than movie posters, and I wanted to keep the color scheme more cohesive on that side. And so it was really difficult because like the movie posters are all different colors, and even if you have matching frames, it's just like, I don't know, kind of a mess. But I set myself up over here to have a little bit of an easier time because my color scheme was a little bit looser. Like, obviously you have the turquoise and the gray, but also, I had some like purple accents. There's some like pink accents, and so finding wall art that matches wasn't nearly as difficult as it was on Duncan's end. And I ended up using kind of a lot of stuff from the Dine Out pack, which is weird because I don't know, I've never really used that pack before outside of like building restaurants, right? But some of the wall art is really cute. And so I ended up using some of it here. Obviously this is from Cats and Dogs, but near the dining nook, I used that wine glass picture that I almost put in that corner instead. I just thought it made more sense next to the table. And on this little wall, I almost put one of these stone wall decorations from Jungle Adventure, but the shadow was really weird when I shrunk it down to make it fit, and so we did not do that. I ended up going with a mural from Horse Ranch instead. I always want to call it Ranch Living. I know that's not what it's called. Maybe that's what it should have been called. But that just fit so much better, and it didn't have a weird shadow. And then in this corner next to the door, I ended up putting a sort of like key and lanyard hook sort of situation. And I went with this little framed photo from Cottage Living because it kind of matched the one from Cats and Dogs that I put in the other corner by the desk. So that was sort of like a cohesive like entryway kind of vibe. And it took me a long time to find this item too, but we eventually got it. And I was really stoked when I placed it because I was like, oh, the woods match like perfectly. I mean, all the rest of the like fixtures in the house are black or like a darker brown, but the two next to each other, the key rack and the frame photo, like, oh, perfect, chef's kiss. And yeah, here I used this wine glass photo, but I shrunk it down so that it would fit next to the table better. And then I moved on to the bedroom, and I had already decided that I was going to use that stack of books item. And so you'll see later there's like an entire section of the room dedicated to making this item make sense. But that was something that I was like, you know what? Courtney would have this. Like, again, she's really organized and really put together, but I also kind of headcanon her almost as this, like, bookworm, you know? And so, like, she's just gonna have a pile of books lying around that she's maybe, like, only part of the way through a bunch of them, but she, like, wants to keep them handy, you know what I mean? So I needed to have this item. And, oh, yeah, I went and fixed the trim on the roof because I noticed in my last video that I did after I was like, yay, I'm done with Duncan's half, I like zoomed out to take screenshots and I was like, oh, I didn't do the trim. And then I didn't go back and fix it. But it's fixed now, so it's fine. And obviously the build wasn't up on the gallery before. It will be now. And so you guys don't have to worry about any of that. And I also realized, speaking of the gallery, I completely forgot to upload my Eva, Katie, and Sadie Sims. So they're not up yet, but they will also be on the gallery available for download as well, just as soon as this one is up as well. So by the end of today, they'll be up for you guys to snag. And yeah, for this little bedroom area, I know for Duncan's bedroom, I had put the bed between the wall with the window and the banister, and I think that looks cute. It looks really cozy to me, but over here I wanted to do something different. And then actually, it turns out this was probably a better use of space because I feel like I was able to fit more furniture up here with the bed this direction than I was with the other direction. But it's fine. I think both look good, even if one of them is a little bit more space efficient than the other. And you'll see I put a little couch at the end of the bed there. That's one of my favorite things to do when I'm decorating a bedroom, is to put a little bench at the end of the bed. I know a lot of the like EA builds, they do the little like footstool ottoman looking thing at the end of beds. And you know, that's cute, but I think like a love seat with like a back actually looks really good. And yeah, there it is, the little reading nook with that stack of books. I think it's so cute. And I use that plant from Cottage Living. I use it kind of a lot. It just has a good footprint. It doesn't take up too much space, and the leaves aren't too big compared to the base of the pot. So I don't know, it's really space efficient to me. And I lamented that we don't have a proper vanity while I put together her little like dressing area, but I do like that vanity-ish sort of thing from Cottage Living, so I went with that. And then I wasn't sure what to put in the opposite corner to it, and so I ended up putting a fish tank, which might not be the most Courtney thing to put, but I really was kind of at a loss for what to stick in that corner, and I didn't want to leave it empty. And I also didn't want to just put like a corner couch or another bookcase. Like that felt kind of like a cop-out. So I went with a fish tank and then a little sitting area there at the top of the stairs, which I think looks very cozy. And then for rugs, I did 2 runners on either side of the stairs, which I think looks, again, very cozy, and it keeps the room looking balanced because, I don't know, that was sort of my whole idea with that end of the room, was to keep it sort of symmetrical. And then I was pretty indecisive about what kind of rug to put underneath the bed. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a green rug, if I wanted to do a gray rug. I wasn't sure if I did like a black or a white one, if it was going to be too much black and white or too much gray, and I wanted it to be, you know, more balanced. Obviously the walls are green, so if I did a green option, that might be too much too, but I ended up going with this black and white one from My First Pet Stuff, which honestly I wasn't sure would work because you see that swatch in the catalog and you're like, is that a skinned hamster? And I always forget that it has other swatches, that are like, more normal in their shape. But I think this black and white one looks really good. And it's mostly white, right? And so it doesn't really blend in with the rest of the gray as much as I was worried it would. And then on this wall, I put up some art from Cats and Dogs, which I've never used this painting before, but I'm in a Facebook group where people post their Sims builds, and I'd seen somebody use it in one of their builds, and I was like, wait, that's actually really cute. Maybe I should use that too. And so I did for the first time. Shout out to that person in my build group. Very cool. And then on this wall, I wanted to do a sort of like gallery wall kind of vibe, which is easier said than done. I struggled a bit with this because I didn't want it to look too crowded. I didn't want it to look too unbalanced. And that's difficult because I didn't want to place a bunch of individual paintings because I don't know, I don't feel like there are enough that have a similar vibe that I could do that. And so I sort of stuck with mostly these ones that are like small collections of photos and paintings, just to sort of like, make the items do the work for me. And I think it turned out pretty good. And yeah, then I remembered I needed a light switch and a laundry hamper up here for her. And so I went and I snagged those from Duncan's End and just changed the swatch on the laundry basket so that it would match. And that's Courtney's room. And after that, I moved on to landscaping, which I do have this reference picture. It's the only reference picture that I have for the exterior of this build. And I know it's not like the most accurate thing in the world, but I was kind of like just sort of using it as like, loose inspiration. But it is in the forest, and so I wanted to do a kind of woodsy vibe for the exterior of this house, even though, it's in the middle of Newcrest. Whatever, it's a vibe. If the forest isn't gonna come to me, I have to bring it. And so I ended up placing like a bunch of trees and shrubs to sort of match the vibe of the house in the picture. But I did start with some terrain paint around the edges of the house, which I know that I have forgotten in my previous builds, and that's not because I don't like to do terrain paint around the edges. It's literally because I forgot to do it. It was literally like I finished those other builds and I was so excited to be done that I didn't even think of like, oh, I should put terrain paint around the edge. And it's like I landscaped those builds too, but I don't know, I'm just forgetful. And the only like exterior furniture that's shown in this reference picture is a picnic table and a fire pit. And so I placed those first. I went with this picnic table from, I think this is Outdoor Living. Or what's it called? I forget. The camping one. And then I went with this just like simple base game grill. I didn't see a grill in the reference picture, but I think it made sense for the space. And then that fire pit that kind of matches the one in the photo. And then after that, I was like, is there anything else I need to put here? And I was like, oh, a cooler, of course. And then I sort of used this same gravel situation to kind of fill in this little picnic area back here. I didn't cover the entire yard, obviously, because I wanted to leave room for vegetation, but it made sense to me, at least, to have that path in the middle be connected to this sort of picnic area. It's not like a patio, but like it's close. And then I plopped a lantern on this table as well. I was debating whether or not to put lights on the ground, those like outdoor little, I don't know what you call them, but the ones that like pop out of the ground. But I didn't end up doing that because I couldn't think of a way to place them that would look natural. And so I just went with that one lantern. And then I put some lights hanging from the porches because I don't know if you can see this in the reference picture, but it looks like there's lights hanging from the eaves of the house. And I could be nuts. It could just be a trick of the light in the photo. I have no idea. But I ended up placing lights underneath the eaves anyway. And I honestly think that it looks really cute. And it also means that when my Sims are spending time outside, they won't be completely in the dark. So that was my solution instead of doing, your standard outdoor lights that are on the ground. And after I did that, I kind of went hog wild placing trees. Like I said, it's in the forest, so we're going to have to bring the forest to us. I used a lot of trees from... Again, I forget what it's called, but they're Granite Falls trees, and I think they look good. And I placed some random shrubs back here as well, just, again, to make the picnic area make more sense to me. It looks more naturally placed when it looks like, we placed it in around the vegetation rather than the other way around. And then I wasn't sure if I wanted to do entirely pine trees or if I wanted to have some deciduous leafy trees as well. I ended up going with all pine trees, but you can see I tried out a bunch of different leafy ones first just to see if I liked them. And oh yeah, I just got the romantic garden pack, and so I have a bunch of new flowers that I haven't used before, so you'll see I used a lot of those here. And I'm really excited because it's like spring in my game, and so all of the plants look like they're, dead. But when I do play in this save and it gets to be summer, I'm really excited to see all of those new flowers actually blooming and like fully in color. I think it's gonna look so cute. And oh yeah, then I remembered that I had move objects on and I was like, you know, maybe I should turn it off while I adjust where these trees are, because something I really hate is when I'm building with move objects on and then I like go into live mode or live mode, whatever you want to call it. And the trees are like clipping into the walls of the house, or they're like so close to the edge of the lot that it like causes problems, you know? So I turned it back off just so that I wouldn't have that situation, which I almost turned it back on when I was placing these rocks. And then I was like, it doesn't matter, it's fine. And yeah, so I just like placed some rocks around so that it didn't look too empty, you know, because I didn't want it to look too much like a normal lawn. And then I went in and I kind of went crazy with the terrain paint. And I just did some underneath all of the different trees, and I ended up changing basically the entire color of the lawn, which I don't know. I've never really done that before. I've never really gone and changed like the whole lawn's grass color before, but I think it looks more natural, I guess, with all of the trees than this like really bright green does. So I don't know. I think it was worth it in the end, even though it took me kind of a long time. Oh wow, I feel like I'm running out of things to say about this build. How are you guys? How have you been? I posted a video last week, but I wasn't really like here last week because I pre-recorded that video because my best friend and my girlfriend came and visited, and so we've just been like hanging out and playing a lot of video games this last week, which again is why this video is like being posted a few hours later than I would usually post it, because I've just been like hanging out and not really editing videos like I should be doing. And you know, these build videos take a lot longer to edit than I always think they will. It's like I always think like, oh, I could do this in like a day, and then I really can't. And two, I'm like out of practice with editing because I was gone for so long, and so I'm like just now getting into the swing of things. And yeah, believe it or not, muscle memory goes a long way. So I'm slow at it, but you know, it's okay. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with an evening video versus an afternoon video. It's all the same, right? Right. And I did end up doing some flowers and like shrubs in front of the houses here under these big windows. And in the reference picture, they have this sort of like leafy looking like shrub bush thing. I'm not really entirely sure what it is, but I couldn't find anything in the catalog that was similar enough to it, and so I just sort of, you know, did whatever to fill in the space, because it felt like all of the like leafy plants that we have were really tropical looking, and that was not the vibe for the rest of the trees, you know. And I know not all ferns are tropical, but that is kind of how they all look in the game. And so that made it more difficult than maybe it should have been. But I think the way that it ended up, it looks fine. It's a lot of plants. I didn't look and see how much the property is worth, but given that it's like 2 of everything and there's so much landscaping, it's probably a lot. So sorry about that, but you can always go in and edit it if you decide to download it, and make it cheaper, you know, deleting the landscaping and such. And I said this in the last video, but because there is, you know, 2 of everything, if you have the For Rent pack, I think this would be a really good build for that. I don't have that pack, but if I did, I would definitely use this as a rental property. I think it makes sense. I ended up doing this particular style of build, I guess, for a single family, air quotes around single family, because it's Duncan and Courtney. But I ended up doing this because my husband suggested to me that it just like made sense for them to have their own separate spaces, even though they live together, because they've kind of got like a frenemy thing going on, right? Like they were a couple on the show, but there was like a lot of drama and a lot of like tension between them. So I don't know. He was right. It makes sense for it to be this way. And you know, it was fun to build. So it was a good idea. It was a win-win all around. And yeah, here it is, me just like putting random plants in to sort of fill in the space. I ended up using like a bunch of different types. And see, I almost went with that big Monstera looking one to fill it in and have some leaves, but it was too tropical looking, and it was also like huge. So it wasn't gonna work for me. And I ended up going with another plant from Romantic Garden. And I think that it's going to look good when it flowers, and even when it isn't flowering with the little leafy bushes, I think it looks adorable. Yeah, and then I went in and some more terrain paint just to fill in the sort of like flower bed situation that we have going on. And I did sort of blur the corners there so it's not perfectly rectangular. It's also not the best blurring job, but I think it looks better than the like sharp corners, just like a natural plot of dirt, you know what I mean? And that's different than the other landscaping that I've done in this save so far. So it was really fun to sort of mix it up. And yeah, that is basically it. Here are some screenshots of the whole thing, of Courtney's half and also the landscaping. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I had so much fun building it. Please leave me a comment and let me know what you think. Give me a like if you liked it. Feel free to follow me on my Instagram if you so choose. Subscribe to me here, subscribe to me on my essay channel, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!